Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Mike Wisby, CEO and founder of Two Trees PPC here in Sacramento, California. Today, is an exciting day because this is the second in our series of Elevate webinars. Today's focus is going to be on Performance Max for your brand. Let me start showing you the slides. Okay, so there we go. Today with me is Sophie Fell. She's our Director of Paid Media here at Two Trees PPC.
Hi, everyone.
Between us, we have nearly 2 decades of experience in paid media, including Google Ads, and have been responsible for almost $500 million. That sounds like so much. $500 million in Google ad spend, including international search campaigns for major global brands such as Samsung, Whirlpool, LinkedIn, Fila, as well as some of the biggest brands in the UK, such as the National Trust and Vue Cinemas. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive into Performance Max. So let's start with a basic recap of what Performance Max is. Launched in 2021, Performance Max is a campaign format with 3 primary goals. The first goal is to drive conversions. The second goal is to replace the need for multiple campaigns for each of Google's properties. And the third goal is to leverage machine learning, AI, and data from all these touch points in order to create a full funnel and coherent customer journey. Many people conflate Performance Max with search campaigns, but PMax doesn't utilize keywords, so it shouldn't. Yet be used for replacement for search. Instead, it should be used in tandem with your search campaigns. So if you remember from our last webinar, episode 1 of the Elevate series, we talked about the power pair, PMax and search together to drive incremental conversions up to 29% more compared to just using one or the other. So Sophie, what do advertisers need to consider for the basics? What do they need to get started with Performance Max?
Thanks, Mike. So there are a few must-haves when it comes to Performance Max, because of all the placements it utilizes, YouTube, display, Maps, Gmail, things like that. It actually has a much longer list of requirements to run the campaigns than kind of traditional search ads do. So as a critical starting point, and we will talk about this a lot, there is conversion tracking. Again, ideally you'd have kind of conversion tracking for your end goal. So again, leads, sales, etc. But you should also include those lighter conversion events too. So maybe free trial signups, newsletter signups, add to carts, things like that. Again, just to really kind of feed the algorithm with what it needs to drive those conversions. In terms of historical data, you want to have an absolute minimum of at least 30 conversions a month, ideally 30 to 50 to kind of meet that data threshold that really helps Performance Max work and for it to be really effective. So Google actually advises advertisers to use automatically created assets. We have some feelings about that over here, but that is something that is an option. Obviously, you need to make sure that you have the legal rights to your images and any videos and the wording on your own website as well to make that work. And what Google will do with Performance Max, if you're using automatically created assets, is pull in kind of headlines, ad copy, images, things like that from your other ads, so your other search campaigns, but your website too. So you don't have to do that, but best practices dictate that you do. You will need at least one video and at least one image. And I know that this can be kind of the gap for brands in order to kind of pick up on Performance Max is that they don't have a very good video or don't have videos at all. The issue with that is, though, if you don't have enough videos, obviously, and images, with so many placements being very display and video heavy, you will miss out on, 1, those placements, but 2, kind of effective full funnel advertising using those platforms. And if you don't add your own video, Google and Microsoft will create this awful kind of clunky PowerPoint with terrible transitions and things like that, which is not what you want for brand safety. And again, you won't have necessarily that control you need to make a really great video to get in front of your ideal customers. And also ad copy too, right? That's no surprise. With Performance Max, you need headlines, you need long headlines, you need descriptions, you need CTAs as well. So these are all the things you need to get started. We'll talk a little bit more about this throughout the webinar too. So, Mike, with these kind of must-have lists in mind, who is Performance Max suitable for? Kind of which industries should people be considering using Performance Max for?
Great question. So, Sophie, you briefly touched on it. Performance Max can be used for a variety of different brands and business sizes. You don't have to have a huge budget to make Performance Max work. Although, as it is conversion oriented, you do need to have a healthy budget. The better your budget, the more you'll have to drive results. Performance Max can be used for the following objectives. So, online sales, if you're using a merchant center or shopping feed, shop goals such as driving visits to a physical store location. So, looking for that conversion action there. Lead generation, we all know about that. Or generating hotel bookings. So, hotel ads are a thing in Google now. If you're in the hotel industry, you know about it. This makes it almost universally applicable for all advertisers. And we believe that this will be the future of how advertising campaigns are run. Really just plugging in the data, setting up the key signals, and letting machine learning find the right audience at the right place with the right messaging at the right time. It's kind of the story that we always say, right? Timing is everything, data is everything, and this is bringing it all together. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Sophie to discuss some of the best practices for PMax.
Cool. Yeah. So as we just mentioned, there is a bit of a heavier lift with Performance Max than with search. And again, that is a big barrier for a lot of brands, even still today. Even though it's been out nearly 3 years now, that's something that we find, particularly when speaking to new clients, is that maybe they're still not ready for that step. So let's take a look at what some of the best practices are, and hopefully encourage you to start Performance Max. So you'll need a minimum of the following. So at least one clear business logo, at least one relevant image. Ideally, it's an image that's to think about it, horizontal, that can then be cropped to vertical and square placements too. Otherwise, if you try and kind of crop a vertical to horizontal placements, it almost always looks awful. So ideally, starting with that. So you can have up to 5 business logos, and you can have up to 20 images. And again, at least one video and up to 5 can be uploaded in total. So kind of outside of these basic requirements, you want to kind of use as many variants of assets as possible. So your 5 headlines, for example, they're not all saying the same thing. You have to bear in mind that your long headlines may appear instead of your headlines, but as well as descriptions. I think a mistake that a lot of people make is that they kind of use long headlines and descriptions interchangeably, but actually, you want to treat them as a separate thing and make those variants as kind of unique as possible. And then kind of play around with your formats as well. You don't necessarily want 20 images of exactly the same thing. You don't want 5 exactly the same videos. So play around with formats, maybe, 15, 30, 60-second videos, have that variety there. With images, maybe not just where possible. I know with merchant feeds and things like that, it can get tricky, but ideally not just those flat pictures with the white in the background. You want some UGC, you want someone using the product or the service, and that can help it to be really engaging, again, across those kind of display YouTube placements. In terms of best practices, you can also input up to 25 search themes. So you want to treat these in a similar way to your keywords. So they're quite similar to Broadmatch in the sense that it doesn't have to be exactly what you've put, but the context and intent of the search has to be similar. And what Performance Max does is use these keywords as signals, or search themes as signals, and then the reach will be kind of expanded based on those initial signals. So it's not super strict like exact matches. And this additional context will help to guide the algorithms to find those relevant audiences, particularly in the beginning if they're coming off of very little data. And again, then they'll expand upon it too. So for example, if you're looking for like best running shoes for men, and that's kind of your keyword that you would use in your search campaigns, you can use that as one of your search signals, but maybe you'd also want things like men's trainers or men's sneakers or men's workout gear, again, just to get that context right of the user. And finally, you should really try and use your data as much as possible. So first-party data, of course, ideally this would be integrated from your CRM live. But if not, this can be updated once a week or so. And this will allow you to leverage those customer match lists, and then you can bid for new customers over existing and previous customers. And that's one of the more advanced features that Performance Max offers, and it's really, really great. So it just means that you're not necessarily just going after that low-hanging fruit. There's that incrementality piece there by kind of effectively ignoring the people that you already have as customers or previous customers. Ideally, you'd also have live remarketing lists too, again, maybe based on key product page views, people that added to cart and things like that. These will need at least 100 active users from the last 30 days. And again, that just really supports the full funnel element of Performance Max. Although it's conversion based, it's really important to think of Performance Max as a full funnel journey. And again, kind of carrying people from awareness through to consideration and then down to conversion at the bottom. So with all those kind of best practices and things that we need in mind, which metrics should we be reviewing, Mike, to make sure that we're getting the most out of our Performance Max campaigns?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, fill them today, Sophie. As a conversion-focused strategy, I would say that the key metrics will be conversion volume and conversion rates, obviously. So you see my new slide? There we go. For PMax, the benchmark for a good conversion rate is actually 1 to 2%. That does vary and it's dependent on your industry. And usually after 4 to 6 weeks of running the campaign and adhering to the best practices that Sophie just went over, you should start to see increases in conversion volume. So core PPC engagement metrics such as click-through rate are going to be skewed to display and video placements. So, we're used to seeing a strong click-through rate of 4 to 6%. That's a baseline for search. That's not going to apply here. Instead, expect about 1 to 2%. 1.2 is the average click-through rate on PMax that we're seeing. I think, Sophie, that's about right. So PMax has got a bit of a reputation. When they first launched it, it was known to be a bit of a black box in terms of reporting. But since its launch, there have been a lot of improvements to this, and there are still a lot more to come, we're promised by Google. So I have to say that. No, just joking. No, it's really good. Asset reports are a useful tool that are going to demonstrate how well each of your headlines, descriptions, images, videos are performing. So that's really good to know. It's a lot more granular and broken down, so you know which assets to tweak. And videos they're all based upon engagement, right? So they're either ranked low, good, and best. So for optimizations, what we suggest is switching out any of those low performing, the weak performing assets, rather than changing the entire ad, which was something I've seen a lot of people do before. They think one of the assets isn't working, so they reinvent the whole wheel. No need to do that. You can just tweak out those little assets. Beyond engagement, Google recently launched asset level conversion reporting with detailed suggestions on how to prove the assets to drive conversion. So this is a huge win for advertisers. They really listened to the feedback that they got from the early days of the launch. And the conversation has changed, and we are now discussing PMax seriously and really recommending it. Audience insights are another handy reporting feature. That's not exclusive to PMax, but this report will give you a breakdown of performance such as engagement and conversions for each audience your ads are targeting. Audience is super important. We'll go more into that at a later date. But these are not necessarily audience that you've created and defined for targeting, but it was also going to include affinity groups that the algorithms have identified top performing for your ads. That's really important and major the way things are going. Available for all campaign types that include display or video placements. Placement reports are another useful tool. This report is going to show you the performance of your ads across all placements, such as apps, websites, YouTube channels, and it's going to allow you to double down on top performing placements and then exclude some of the weaker performers. So it's really helpful if you're using tools such as SparkToro to identify where your people are at. This will support that data and help you formulate content to match the those channels. You can also stop your ads from appearing on content that could be harmful to your brand. There's a lot of bad stuff out there on the internet. Even if it's approved on YouTube, it still might not fit your brand. So you can actually do placement level exclusions on the account level, which is really cool. So Sophie, I'd like you to share some of the advanced features that people can use to get the most out of their Performance Max campaigns.
Sure, yeah. So as I kind of touched on earlier, I think one of the main benefits of PMax is its incrementality. So again, being able to bid only for new customers is such a huge win. I think, again, when PMax first came out, lots of people saw it as something that only went after kind of low-hanging fruit or brand terms or people that were going to buy from you anyway. And now we can really kind of push that with Performance Max by, again, saying, here's our customer data, bid for new customers only, and I think that's a really huge win for PMax as well. Obviously, we would suggest excluding brand terms from Performance Max. Again, as part of the power pair, you do want to keep some search running, so we'd suggest keeping your brand search running and letting your brand search kind of campaigns kind of draw in the people that already know who you are, and then you're not paying for their conversions via Performance Max. So I think that's a really important one to remember, is PMax does not replace search. It should go alongside it. So by excluding those brand terms for Performance Max, again, you're just really ensuring that you're bidding for new customers and new people. PMax's brand safety measures are evolving, so I know Mike just touched on this as well. But until recently, you'd need to fill in a form or speak to a Google rep in order to get negative keywords added to your Performance Max campaigns, which, as you can imagine, is and was very tedious. However, Google luckily recently announced, again, based on the feedback we've all been giving them, that advertisers will have access to self-serve negative keywords at the PMax campaign level, which is what we're very, very used to running with search. And this will be rolled out to absolutely everyone by the end of 2024. So if you don't have it yet, we've got 6, 8, I'm not sure, I can't do maths right now. We haven't got long to the end of the year. So we're expecting that will be kind of available for absolutely everyone on Google by the end of the year, which will be really, really exciting. It will take a lot of the hassle out of running Performance Max campaigns. And then we kind of spoke about search themes earlier. Again, try not to confuse them with keywords, so search themes. But you can also create your own audience signals with Performance Max too. So again, as we do with kind of display video placements, you can create your own custom audiences. You can do that using URLs, maybe competitor URLs if you're feeling sneaky. You can use some keywords there, and you can also talk about certain apps that people would be using as well. And that will help you to get your ads again in front of those people. And machine learning will kind of take that information and evolve it to continue getting your ads in front of the right customers. And then obviously, as with all the other kind of campaign types, you can still use demographic targeting, life events, affinity audiences, in-market audiences, which we all love. So they can and should all be used in Performance Max too. So yeah, as well as kind of the basics that Google offer in terms of audience targeting, we'd suggest definitely creating your own too. Again, for control, but also just to make sure you're really getting in front of the right people. So those are some of the advanced features, and I think Mike's now going to do a quick recap.
That's right. Thank you, Sophie. That was really awesome information there. So let's recap. Basically, Performance Max is almost universally applicable to every advertiser, all shapes, sizes, and budgets, pretty much. Its goal is to simplify campaign management across multiple channels and to create a full funnel strategy with the overarching goal of generating conversions. Conversions, conversions, conversions. I'm going to say that until I'm blue in the face. Conversions are everything. So have conversion tracking set up. With the range of asset inputs available, smart bidding, machine learning can effectively get the right message in front of the right audience at the right time using a variety of content and ad formats, all within the Google world infrastructure. couldn't say it better than that. Like, it's all about timing and being in front of the right people at the right time. Just makes things so much easier. It actually does utilize search themes and audience signals input by the advertiser, and uses machine learning to expand upon that information to find the right customers. So it's really using AI and machine learning that they've invested billions in. As advertisers, we should be wielding as many of the advanced features as possible. Create our own audiences, bidding for new customers only, really, really cool tool there. And utilizing the negative keywords at the campaign level. Negative keywords, as you probably are aware, are just everything. You need that. And just to summarize as well, as formerly it was known as a black box for reporting, the level of information available at PMax is still improving. It's not, I wouldn't say it's exactly there yet, but it is improving. And that is allowing us and you to have more hands-on management and human input than ever before. We now, as advertisers and brands, have more control and more confidence in running PMax. It's no longer the elephant in the room. It's something that is being applied and used extremely well, and we're seeing the results today from it. So I know we covered a lot in a short amount of time, and I know a lot of people, there are people who probably have questions. I haven't seen any come in the chat, so I'm going to quickly have a look at that. Sophie, did you get any questions coming into you?
I can see one from Kayla, but she's saying she wants to see a sample of the auto-generated slideshow Google makes. Kayla, I will send you one after this. It is horrible.
Not there yet.
They are not. So it's not there yet. They are not there yet. You think with generative AI that they would be there? No, they're horrible. I will send you an example after this, but you'll be very upset by it.
It's unfortunately they haven't quite worked that one out. It's not there yet. I would say that. So basically it looks like a lot of people are going to be watching us on the replay. So I would just extend out to you a thank you for watching. There aren't any more questions. Sophie, did you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think just, if you're not ready for Performance Max yet, we spoke about this a little bit earlier. Earlier on, I think the biggest barrier that's stopping people is having that high quality video. But again, with generative AI and just, the amount of kind of designers available, like, it is possible to create a really great video on a low budget. You don't necessarily need drones and all that kind of stuff going on. So I think, at Two Trees, we talk a lot about video advertising, YouTube advertising, and things like that. If you're still not there yet, like, just get on the train with videos. I think Performance Max is undeniably the way that advertising's going. We're lucky we still have search. We're lucky we still have these inputs. But Mike and I have worked in PPC for a long time, longer than we care to mention. So it makes us sound old. And so much has changed. And speak for yourself. I think so much is changing that, we, not just us two, the industry as a whole can see that this is kind of where things are going. And I would suggest, if you're still not ready for Performance Max, I would say now is definitely the time. I think in a couple of years, your hand will be forced, and you'll want that historic data. You'll want to, and also you have such a competitive advantage with it as well. I think if not having videos the only things that's stopping you, then that's an easy hurdle to overcome. So anyone who's watching this that isn't yet convinced of the benefits of Performance Max, I would say just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. So we did actually have a question come in from a LinkedIn user. Pretty good question, actually. What is considered a healthy budget for PMax? Very good question.
We're going to have to do that. It depends, which is I know. It does depend, though. It does depend.
It depends on what your competitors are doing, honestly, because it's still very much auction based. So if you're the only one in your industry doing it, you can probably get away with a very little budget. But as we know, I don't think, and because it is so wide reaching, and this does apply to a lot of industries, and a lot of people are jumping on the PMax train. And one thing I would suggest with budget, and this is not just strictly PMax, this is all pay-per-click, all paid advertising as a whole, and a really good bit of advice would be is you need to be able to spend as much as your competitor is spending, because you are going to get into a bidding war with them. And if you are, if they're spending $1,000 or £1,000 a month, you need to be prepared to spend at least that, plus $1, plus £1, because you want to compete. There are things you can do on limited budgets, as we've just discussed. But what you'll find is budget can be a performance limiter. And that's something that we often run into. And then we're able to use the data based upon, like in search, especially with impression share. You can see the auction insights. You can see who else is in the same auction. And if you're getting less impression share than they are, it's not very transparent in terms of, it's not going to show you every single advertiser you're running against, but it will give you an idea of who's in the same ballpark as you. So, sorry, I can't give a much a better answer, but I would just say I wouldn't start with less than $500 a month. Does that sound fair, Sophie? I mean,
Yeah, it depends on so many things. I think a really basic way to think about it is if the minimum to make Performance Max work is 30 conversions a month, for example, and you're already running search and you know what your CPA is, then your CPA times 30 is like a good place to start. Ideally, it would be your CPA times 50. Again, if you're a smaller business and you're getting 50 conversions a month, I think that's where you want to start. I think that's probably a sensible starting point for a lot of people, but Performance Max is hungry, it's a lot of placements, it will evolve. And again, the first 4 to 6 weeks is so crucial, but it grows, right? And it continues to grow and it learns more, and your CPAs are going to come down over time. Again, you can afford to reinvest a bit more and things like that too. So it does depend, but I think if you start with that benchmark of the minimum times by the CPA that you're getting at the moment, I think that's a healthy place to start, but be willing to expand from there.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I'd add that the performance you get in the first 4 to 6 weeks is not going to indicate what you're going to get eventually once it's optimized, especially if you're managing it daily or you have an agency such as Two Trees going in every day and optimizing it. What will happen is you will see that cost per acquisition, that cost per lead, that cost, or however you measure that success, come down over time. And usually within a few months, you plateau, right? You find a good average cost per acquisition. So just bear that in mind. I would always allow a little bit more budget than you think you need, because you don't want to give up too early. You want to give it a chance to work. It is machine learning. It's most likely have seen a similar advertiser do similar things. But as we know, I've run ads, and we've all run ads for the same certain types of advertisers in the same areas and had completely wildly different results. So it's very, very varied, but I would just do that. So another question came in. Thanks, Lexi. Do you think Performance Max would help smaller businesses, or is it more efficient for larger, widespread businesses?
That's a good question. I think, again, if the small business is experiencing kind of that 30 to 50 conversions a month mark, then I think it's perfect for them. I think there's this concept that it's only for large businesses, but it really, really isn't. I think, obviously, the more budget you have, the more data you have, and the quicker it learns and the more efficient you can be. But I think, the whole idea of Performance Max is to break down that barrier for small businesses who would have had to do, one YouTube campaign, a display campaign, a Gmail campaign, a search campaign, all separately, and to kind of bring it into one place. So I would argue that Performance Max is kind of created with those smaller businesses in mind. So definitely, if you're seeing, again, that 30 to 50 conversions a month at the moment from your ads, I think, Performance Max is a good one. And again, obviously, larger brands have bigger budgets and can learn a little bit quicker, but that doesn't mean it's inefficient for small businesses at all.
Yeah, I think No notes. I can't add anything to that. I think that's great. Question here. I don't know if, this would be a good one. Any unique challenges or strategies for particular industries like e-commerce or B2B businesses?
So with e-commerce, you have to treat Performance Max like you did Smart Shopping. So the leverage you have is still in the product names, the product descriptions, and those sorts of things. So I think Performance Max doesn't have the volume of optimization levers that we're used to with search. So again, the optimizations have to kind of come from elsewhere. Again, if you're using like automatically created assets as well, I think your optimizations are more likely to come from changes to your website, for example, than the kind of manual inputs that we have. So I would say don't treat Performance Max too differently if you're an e-com business to Smart Shopping, because again, your feed is the lever that you have, the product names and things like that are the levers that you have. For B2B, I think Performance Max is used a lot in lead gen, and I think again it had that I can't think of the word. I guess people had the impression that it didn't work for B2B, but again, with the wider machine learning that's going on and the wider kind of AI that's gone on, that's really, really improved now as well. So I don't know if there's anything too unique really, because there are now so many display placements and so many YouTube placements. It kind of doesn't matter whether you're B2C, B2B, D2C, the right audience is somewhere, and Performance Max helps you find them. So
Yeah. And I think to add to that as well, with the ability to negative keyword and to negative placement, things like that, that's going to help because, I would say just personally, my findings that PMax wasn't there for some, before. I just don't think it was. B2B has always been, it's not been the focus perhaps of a lot of the Google innovations over the past few years. It's been very e-commerce heavy and very B2C heavy, but I think that's changing. I think that the better you manage the campaign and the more control we have over PMax, the more we can make it work for any unique industry or strategy that we can. That's the main thing. We have control over it now. I think it's it's an interesting topic of conversation. B2B marketing is something that we obviously specialize in and had a lot of success in, which we can talk about another time. I love to talk about our successes. A great question. So I don't see any more questions in. So probably is a good place to wrap this up. We will post the replay. I don't know if this format is particularly working in every placement of the way it is, because this is kind of a new thing, this portrait. I just got to know that it looks really weird on LinkedIn right now. So we'll make sure the replay is looking good. Thanks for joining. And as ever, if you want to reach out, info@twotreesppc.com is our general inbox. We'll get that to the right people and get you the answers you need. But join us for the next time. We will talk more in depth about some of the more innovations and more new products coming out from Google, Meta, TikTok, any paid advertising platform that we manage. We'll start talking about it in these webinars. Okay.